Are you all ready to join me today in our trip to outer space?
Come along quietly or not.
I will talk to you of art, for there is nothing else. Some artist will bait a hook. Yes. Let you bite upon it.
Take this. What time is it?
Classy. And now, without further ado,
and Bondi decided we was all going to be flower children. See, he played the guitar and he had all these old records by Iron Butterfly, way before any rock and roll in this kind of business. So we found these big old yellow flowers, sunflower decals, and we put them on the side of the car, and we put them up on the pit board and put it up on the pole in the pits. And this was a Ford factory car now, and all the Ford people were looking at that thing. You know, we had these flower powers. And we was going to get over to all these people that we were peace. You know, we believed in peace, and that was the kind. And, you know, Yates, he was looking at that deal, man. He was just shaking his head, and we said, well, it was the new us. You know, we were at peace with the world.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. I am, always will be, and always have been, Albert Shivers, and thank you again for listening or watching. Either way, on this episode, I have Roy Hannum on as the guest. He and I talk a lot about music, him being a musician and music producer himself. And he's involved in all sorts of very cutting-edge kind of music things. And we also talk about the difference in feeling and energy between a live show and listening to music at home. So it was a fun conversation. It was good to talk to Roy again. You may remember, Roy was on the show episode 5 or 6. So he was on way in the beginning, so it was good to have him back on now and see that he was doing good. But before we get to Roy, I'm going to give you some updates about what I've been up to. First of all, this is the first podcast of 2021, so Happy New Year and all that jazz. So I did this over the holiday. So this is a recreation of a wreck that stock car driver Junior Johnson had on the beaches of Daytona. And an interesting story about this is that Junior Johnson escaped from his car as it was rolling at him. So this is a photo of him running away from his car as it rolls towards him. And then I just added my own doodads and shiveriness to it, as you can see. And there's, a good amount of drippage and stippling kind of thing going on in that. And also, I'm working on this lady, who will be completely done in ink, and mainly done with all the dots, stippling or pointism. But yeah, this is all going to be done with the dots. Let's bring her a little bit. It's hard to, there's mics and stuff, but you get the idea. So that's what I'm going to be working on. I'm going to be trying to be doing more submitting to publications lately. I think that's going to be a little bit of a new direction for me. I think the gallery thing, the traditional gallery thing, is roundabout dead. That's my feeling. I think that in every other form of art, there's a little bit more of a concrete way to decide good and bad. A bad singer is a bad singer. A bad actor is a bad actor. If I write a bad song, it's like, oh, that's a bad song. But I'll put it to you this way, even better. Everything is subjective in art, right? But visual art world, it makes it a lot easier to backtalk and backpedal your bad art into good art. Throw, it's abstract, or, it's da-da-da. Look, I've seen so much BS, just pure BS, hung on the walls of art galleries that I have to laugh. And just, oh my God, terrible. Just like, what am I even doing? But Point being, I want to start going towards more publication thing and more music related art. Ever since I was a little kid, I've mentioned it on the show before, but I was super into record covers, and I'd like to do more of those. I did an album cover. Let's see if I can get it out without this being an avalanche. No avalanche. Cool. I had done this album cover for Jerry Fells and the Jerry Fells. So it was my art. But this was a while ago. This was a while ago. Here we go. So I'd like to get back to doing more of this kind of thing. Here, let's look at I like the back. This funny alien chick. And then the CD. So this was I'm trying to look at the date here. So I probably drew these. This is like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that I was drawing. This is really when I decided to start pursuing art completely. And so this was early on. And you can see like they're not drawing the greatest, but this was my first professional endeavor. So I keep it for posterity and memory and nostalgia. But I want to start moving more in that direction. As I said before, with a gallery, no matter what, you are going to be at the whim of one person. One person. And that's the person who owns the gallery. And no matter what anybody says, if you own your own place, you're going to hang up what you like. So you're at that whim. And your talent, at whatever level, because I've seen amazingly talented artists, both painters, drawers, collagists, be turned down by galleries who'd be lucky to have them. Okay? And I've seen it happen. I'm like, man, like you're not going to put this person in? So it's now, this year has really helped me to learn this, but for anybody doing artsy stuff, like now is the time. This is the era to just be way more do-it-yourself and just tackle it on your own. Because, I mean, really, I know this is going to go against every artist who may be listening or watching. I know this. But what are art galleries really doing for us? As an artist who loves to draw more than anything else, what's really happening here? You know? Because they're just set up to they're you know what it is they're building a bigger gap between the audience and the art. What do I mean by that? Well, think about how many graffiti artists there are that have become very popular. That says something. What does it say? It says that in this generation, in this time, the artist has to bring the art to the people. Okay? Graffiti art, stenciling, is bringing the art to the person. You're not making the person come to you. You're not saying, come to the gallery, come to my website, come to my Instagram. No. You're plopping that art right in their face as everybody goes. As they go by on the bus, as they're walking to CVS, as they're kicking their dog down the road, their art is right there. And I think that says a lot about people's willingness to go to an art gallery, an outside person's willingness to go to an art gallery. Because every gallery has the same little circle of schmucks, big or small. It's the same people who all stand in a circle with one another. And it never grows. And what's going to happen? We're just all just going to keep trading and buying our own art? No. that's not the goal here. The goal here is for eyeballs and a little bit of appreciation. So, my phone just distracted me. Damn it, I was really on a roll there. Maybe it's better I just leave it at that. Then maybe the phone is telling me to shut up. But I think that visual artists who are really taking it seriously and really want to do it because they love to do it and they want some eyeballs, we have to bring the art to people. Don't expect them to come to see it anymore, because galleries are getting stuffier and stuffier and the art is getting worse and worse. Okay? That's all I got to say about that. On other notes, the Instagram stuff is going good at Albert Shivers, and I have a new Instagram page that combines 70s exploitation and racing called NASCAR Pulp. Now, it's not just stock car racing. I throw in other forms of racing too, but my little tagline is the grit, sleaze, and speed of NASCAR and motorsports from then to now. But it's mainly then, because I play on that whole 70s thing. So that's my Instagram for my art and my videos at Albert Shivers. The other Instagram at NASCAR Pulp. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're already here. But if you're listening, the Albert Shivers YouTube channel. Look, it's 2021. Everything's going crazy. You might as well just do what you want to do. You might as well just enjoy yourself, because who knows, it could be later than we think. So just enjoy yourself. So I'm going to be putting out tons of videos, kicking ass. Probably going to try to do 2 videos a week of some kind to just keep throwing things at you in case you enjoy hearing me ramble on the same way I'm rambling on right now. But on that note, we're going to jump to Roy and my conversation with him. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast, and I am excited to have an original guest from the show back on, Roy Hannum. It's great to have you back on the show. I'm glad to see you.
Thanks, Al. Thanks so much. I'm really excited to be back. We always cover a lot of good stuff, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So we decided to go into today, or start off with the topic of taken from the title of a Dylan song, The Times They Are Changing, and they sure are this year. It feels like it's been a decade since March, almost.
Yes.
With everything that's going on. And amongst all the people who were affected by this, which is just about everybody, musicians definitely took a hit during this time, especially independent musicians. And that's what we could start off talking about here. So
great. Yeah.
What are some things you've noticed about the?
Well, I think of course the biggest thing is obviously the direction going forward to where does a musician go from here, and it's bleak, as you know. Many venues, depending where you are, there's no local, in many cases, very limited local exposure, especially in the last 2 months. Again, we've gotten back a couple of steps back. Mm-hmm. I know in different parts of the country, they have had, I don't know if it's going to last, some local establishments are able to perform, but here in our area, it's been very bleak. I'm in Connecticut, near New York City in Greenwich, and it's been a very tough slide. So that kind of income was very important to smaller, gigs, so to speak. Very important to musicians to help make ends meet. And it's kind of forced us back into more or less looking to record more at home, which I've gotten into to adjust. Mm-hmm. We have a new platform structure on SoundClick that's actually been doing very well. SoundClick is a platform. It's a largely for emerging artists. It's not the Billboard 100, but every day you chart against. In my case, I'm in the classification of a blues player, so we track against 60,000 other blues tracks that are on SoundClick, and the guy who gets the most hits gets the winner's prize. We have had a #1 song recently that went, which was nice. However, it's monetarily, other than for promoting, it's not particularly, there is no real monetary gain there. So if you're trying to make a living as a musician, you got a tough road on that, even though you got some product. I'm working now with a couple of people who are specialized in creating fan clubs for smaller musicians. Usually there's a group, maybe 200, 300, 400 people that if you're a musician and you post a lot, you'll eventually attract. And most musicians don't have the time or the ability to develop those. So one of the embryonic things we're doing is trying to assist in that medium, so that, for instance, the fans hopefully can be induced, if they really like your music, for personal attention, maybe buy a T-shirt, buy a CD from you as a signed CD, as a little, kind of memento, or things that you would not normally do, if you're just going on to Spotify or Amazon Music and you just watch it this one time. They give you a minimal, really minimal of pay-per-view. So I don't know too many smaller and independent musicians that have done well in that medium. Some have, but it's usually very short-lived because you got to continually get views to create income, and they don't pay you much per view. So it's a big effort, and usually it economically doesn't really pay off too much in terms of developing revenue. But the fan clubs, I think, are an asset because hopefully you can produce some revenue for, based on that, and that your fans will, in fact, support you a bit. And you can have special, little concerts for them, or you can, just personalize it a lot. And so it's embryonic. We're looking into that, and I'm working in that score because I would love to see, and part of my life's work has been to try to see how the smaller to, modestly known independent musician can survive. Yeah. And these types of things are needed to, especially now in COVID, to overcome the income loss that the old normal, I play down at this place on Saturday and another gig on Sunday, and you got a little revenue coming in to help. But I think that's one avenue that will be hopefully worth pursuing, because that doesn't take a tremendous amount of promotion. To start to go with. So and the fans don't. If the fans support you and buy a few things there during the year, it can work out pretty well, and they can show a little bit of their support. And again, I think that is important because we got to keep the creativity going. Right now, many musicians are almost hobbyists. There's nowhere to go and no place to go. Now, if you're on the upper tier, sure, your record label or whatever you call it will come to deal with larger platforms like Spotify and Amazon, all these different platforms that you can go to watch music on subscription or, whatever, just for free. Yeah. And they get a much better situation. But that's because they deliver huge numbers consistently. Right. And to have that kind of machine behind you, you don't have too much chance. Yeah. And And of course, the other thing is there'll be a lot, and have been. I mean, among the major stars. I mean, yeah, you can do your, TV, and your networks might pick you up on specials or stuff like. But that is there's only so many who have achieved that kind of status. I mean, it's very hard, to even think about that in the normal scheme of things, But and then of course the next question is, how long is it going to last? I mean,
Right.
That's the great unknown, So it is a depressive time.
Yeah.
And it's funny, during hardship times, music often does very well because it relieves us and transforms us from our current, focus on worry and fear and doubt a little bit for at least a couple of minutes, and changes your mood.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy. But this one, it's hard, and it comes especially good when you see somebody live perform. As good as the technology is today, there's still nothing the same as seeing a live performer,
Right.
in my opinion anyway,
Oh, yeah.
play for you. Listening to him or her on, it's a recording gives you something, but doesn't give you transference of emotion and passion as easily. And I think that's part of the listening process, or part of the overall mystique, if you want to call it that, of music. I mean, there's a power in this. And I think anybody can relate to that. I do. I go to some, when I used to be able to go out.
Right.
But you can really resonate, and you don't get the same resonation just by watching a video on YouTube or anywhere, or just listening to the music. There's losing a dimension. So I think it's an important thing to get back to, for the benefit of all mankind, so to speak. Not too global, but I think music is ingrained in just about every, society of some kind, and it's very important. It's more. I think you notice the absence when it's gone. You notice it much more easily than when it's there and you kind of take it for granted. So hopefully something will return eventually with the new, I don't know, whatever they're going to do, vaccines or whatever.
Right.
I certainly pray for that. I mean, this has been a major dislocation. I don't recall in my lifetime, and I'm going to be 74, anything quite like this. Yeah. It's its own unique, and the total absence of socialization is, a big deal. So even though it's necessary, perhaps, it's still a big change. And so let's hope and pray a little bit, I suppose, for better times. And hopefully this too shall pass, But there are some things, like I've said, that we're looking at it as an embryonic basis. The good news, though, is technology is much better. Yeah. And our whole, which I'll share the website info later, but our whole structure has been done by simply, our platform is all done now through cell phone recording. Yeah. There's no video involved, but and I'm currently working with another artist in Germany called Didi Van Fritz, and Didi and I have never met each other personally, but we like each other's music, and we started transatlantic collaboration, so we call ourselves the Sledgehammers.
Okay.
And that's our platform site name, and we do a lot of unique stuff, some unique blues, some covers that we adapt. Mm-hmm. We do some gospel, we do a little bit of everything. But it has an old time flavor, but with a newer, fresher image, I guess the way I would describe it. So, but we've been able to do that very inexpensively now. In the past, you used to have to go to studios and it was a big endeavor.
Right.
Expense and time.
Yeah.
And it allows you. So I will say that the advances in technology are truly encouraging. Okay, and it allows a lot of things to be able to be done where you would never have it before.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things in the times they are a changing theme. It is good. Plus the music is preserved, and that's important too. I know much of your work is about older as well as newer genres and art and music, and so it's a good thing that we're preserving this.
Yeah.
And versus a lot of music was lost in the past, and now it's at least somewhat, which is good.
Yeah. I had been given a tour of at the local college here. They have a room of records, and they have a man there who pretty much he runs that section of the library. He looks over the curator. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
And he had thrown a fact at me that was surprising in terms of preserved music, which is that of all the music recorded pre-digital, okay, so like before CDs, all the music recorded pre-digital, only 19% of that music made the transition and was changed to digital.
Right.
Which is a staggering statistic to me, because in the way my mind works, and this was a statement of maybe 10 years ago, so there could be more now, but that really made my mind think about the treasure trove of things that are still out there. And that's another, what I feel is a benefit of the digital age, is that we've not only been able to preserve what's new, but just as much as we can going back. I mean, it's almost an endless rabbit hole to dive into, no matter what kind of music you're interested in. Whether it's jazz or blues or rock, it's all like right there. It's as easy as it's ever been to find, which unfortunately, it eliminates music stores, it eliminates record stores.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, a long time ago in our first interview, the demise of the record store, and that was but you're right. It's changed that. But go ahead. I'm sorry, but I was just.
Oh no, it's it's a double-edged sword, because we have all this right here on a computer, but as you were saying, the interpersonal thing of either going to a store and hanging out at the record store, or like that, is gone,
Yes.
And the fact that, playing a record or a CD is more physical than clicking the button. So it is like there's some positives to it and some negatives to it.
Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. The negative, right, is, and we've talked about it, is the lack of personal, I call it transference. Mm-hmm. It's a transference of the emotion. And it's an amazing thing I've seen, and I'm sure we all have. Your emotions are transferred by the presence in a live audience with other people around and watching a live performer. I mean, that's why people go crazy at concerts and other things. It's just so intense. And you feel it. It's a force. Yeah. And just, watching it, it's true in film, too. I remember going way back, I don't know if there's too many anymore, but there used to be some really big screen, Radio City type music hall type screens, huge, that I used to go back down to in Manhattan. And I saw like Lawrence of Arabia there, and I saw Jaws, these kind of things. And they had these sound systems going, and they have this huge screen. And you just immerse yourself into the whole experience. And but I was watching some of the stuff, I used to go to on oldie, some of the old stuff. It doesn't have near the impact. Even if you have a good sound system and all, but it's not the same. You get a certain group transference there in the group itself. And I can remember sitting with everybody was reacting to it. And I think that a certain unknown type of communication that, or undefined or unstudied, but it's definitely there. I mean, I've seen that all my life. Yeah. And I think it's hopefully something that we can get back to with music, at least, because that's my forte is music. But anyway, it is a powerful and important thing. You know?
So let me ask you this: in that vein of thinking of transference, what were some shows where you experienced that?
Well, I used to go. I saw. There was a great for people around New York area. The Jones Beach Theater was out this summer, and they would have. It was not a small venue. I'll tell you two stories that are quick about my background. I was hanging out then. I was kind of young, and I was hanging out with a couple of guys who were musicians, and they actually had a gig not a whole. They were going to be a cover act for, I forget who it was maybe Chuck Berry, somebody real big was coming. This is like 60 years ago. Well, not quite. Maybe 55 years ago. I can't remember who it was. But what happened was the guys asked me to come down. I was just hanging out with them in the backstage. I wasn't performing at all with them. So all of a sudden, they get a call. Their lead, their rhythm guitarist, is home with the stomach flu or whatever he had. He absolutely could not. So I had sat in and jammed with a couple of these guys in the past. So they're looking around, what are we going to do? So my buddy says, well, Roy is here. He can play. I'm looking, and there's 30,000 people out there, right? I have never played. And I said, wait. Hey, Roy can play, you know. So he said, no, don't worry about it. You're just going to be rhythm, guitar, and we'll sing. Just, you jam with us all the time. Right. So my 15 seconds of fame was to be stuck way in the back with the other couple of band members while they did the show. And we were just, as a cover act, but we got them warmed up a bit. And then I think it was, it might have been Chuck Berry. I don't know. God, it was somebody. But at any rate, and then the things really cooked. But that transference, you could feel it in as a musician, and you can feel it in the, my cat here. The interaction with the audience. Right. And that was truly a remarkable experience. I never got back there again, but that was luck of the draw being Johnny on the spot, just because who else were they going to get at the last minute? Yeah. So, but that was an interesting situation. But the other part is, going to some concerts. I went to Woodstock, the original Woodstock. I'm that old. And so being up there, was something else. That was just a whole scene, if you want to call it. And again, the transference of emotion and passion and everything else. I saw Joe Cocker there, who was one of my great, loves, and I just always loved Joe Cocker. But I cover a bunch of his songs nowadays. And there's a whole bunch of those. And it's that whole emotional transference of the whole couple of days, something you never forget. It's informal, but yet it's real and tangible. You can, and everybody builds on everybody else's. Yeah. It's like a building crescendo, a rolling snowball. The more it rolls, the bigger it gets. And it was truly, those are two experiences that affected me greatly. And of course, just going to many concerts is usually mostly moving. Right. I saw John Denver. I'm trying to think of a couple other guys that wasn't really that interested in John Denver's work when I heard it.
Right.
It's nice, but when I saw him in concert, it was much different.
Yeah.
It's just different, and it goes on the list. But it is truly, to me, something that I think we all can relate to.
Right.
So those are just a couple of stories about the old days, but they have relevance today.
Yeah.
And it still hasn't changed. I don't think that's true of Human Nation. Now we're denying that essence right now, unfortunately, because we have to.
Right.
But let's hope we can get it back, because I think it's a very important thing.
Mm-hmm.
The day of whether you go to a festival or not, I think it's something that's very valuable, more valuable than people think. You know?
Yeah, I agree. Let's jump back for a second. So were you at Woodstock for the entire concert?
What I can remember of it.
Okay.
I get my drift.
Uh-huh.
And that was a wild time. What I remember mostly was the mud.
Right.
Lots of mud. We saw as many acts as we could. Country Joe and the Fish was another one there were so many that played there that just they were a group I had never heard before, and they did a wonderful job there. And I've since continued on. In fact, I heard their song now, "Going Down Country," is being played on a commercial I just saw the other day.
Okay.
On TV, so a lot of this is relevance and it stays.
Yeah.
But Woodstock was truly something else. We're lucky we got home. Well, we got home. Let's put it that way. But I wouldn't trade that for, and that's truly a precious memory of me being there. Yeah, it really was, and it was unplanned. I mean, it was planned since they had a concert. Nothing quite like that. Resonance and that group transference that you can plan. You have to just let it happen, and hopefully it did, and it did. Then it absolutely did, and it was very transformative in music too, because music was going through different changes then. If you recall, Dylan had a tough time.
Yeah. Going
electric, and he was booed. Not at Woodstock, not at Woodstock, but that was at the Newport Jazz Festival, I think.
Yeah.
And he sang Maggie's Farm, and it was his first real entry into electric, and it was not well received, and he had to work hard to get over that.
Yeah, I understand. Like Pete Seeger had an axe that was going to cut the cords to the amplifiers. I heard that story a few times.
I heard that too. But Pete Seeger. Well, he was another tremendous. He had an ability to get a crowd going too. Yeah. Amazing. He would just something about that. He played all over the world after that.
Yeah.
Especially when he got blacklisted and he was having a difficult time, and he kept going. It was. Let me tell you something, just on Pete Seeger.
Yeah.
One of the top-selling songs in the world in 1950 was "Goodnight Irene." Now, "Goodnight Irene" was either 1, 2, or 3, way up there. And the story behind that was written by Leadbelly.
Yeah.
Who was an old blues man who came out of prison and became a star. Largely because Alan Lomax founded him. But there was a whole story. We don't know that one. But Leadbelly stuff, that was the old days when they used to have the quote-unquote black labels.
Yeah.
And it was completely different separation between mainstream and the black labels. So he was able to do fine with the black labels, but they wanted to move him up into the mainstream, basically. And the guy who made that happen, a lot of it was Pete Seeger, because he was with a fairly new group who were all blacklisted later, called the Weavers.
Right.
And Weavers took Leadbelly's song and then he performed it in a, obviously socially acceptable environment, and it became a huge, huge hit. Unfortunately, Leadbelly died 6 months before he was able to see the simple success of that song he wrote.
Yeah.
And it was too bad, but that shows you Pete Seeger's nature. He went against a lot, and he was always like that, trying to very inclusive guy, and he was another one that used the personal performance to great effect. It took him on the Transference theme, and that was a big deal. Yeah, it was.
And he was doing it without amplifiers and electricity. He was doing it acoustic.
Absolutely, and that was a challenge in and of itself, But yeah, there was a lot of. I was a bit younger then. I was younger. I was born in 1947, so the time I started playing, I was 13 or so. We were getting into electric without questioning that much, because all kids played electric back around 1960, when it was just really starting to get out. But even though I played acoustic without amplification for a long time after that, but eventually, we were more accepting of it. But a little bit older generation, liked really the older style, didn't go for the electrification much at all. And when Muddy Waters came in to do the blues and Chicago blues, that was a big deal too. Back then, it was a big. These are, you're tearing down walls to build a new dimension, and it's tough work, and you take a lot, you take on your chin while you're doing that in the transition. And it takes a lot of courage to do that, I think, for some of these guys.
Mm-hmm. No, and even as you brought up Leadbelly and Muddy Waters, who was a little bit later, I also one of my favorites is Howlin' Wolf.
Yeah.
And he was another musician who at first was reluctant to go electric. And then once he did, his music exploded.
Yes, absolutely.
So it was a big thing back then. It was a choice.
Yeah. The choice was big.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember back then, and we had Greenwich Village. I think we talked about this a little bit on our list. So, but it was largely folk in the beginning, especially early.
Yeah.
And wasn't, and the folk eventually picked up the blues, and then of course the jazz sprung out, and then there were other dimensions that came out of the village that were strong. But that's what it was. Now folk was really an acoustic instrument, and based on an acoustic instrument, guitar. And the purists who like folk didn't easily accept it. Some loved it, but some did not, and it was a tough transition for the fans as well as the artists to decide to do that. It was a big deal.
Right. So to jump back to Woodstock, you mentioned Bob Dylan, who was not there.
Right.
He had his motorcycle accident, and at that point, this is the time of John Wesley Harding album, and just before the Nashville Skyline, when he went a little bit more country, you could say.
Yes, he changed his. He changed that country. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Basically, he changed it when he did Nashville Skyline.
So one thing I had heard, I'm curious if you've heard it too, that one of the reasons behind putting Woodstock where it was because Bob Dylan lived nearby. If you think about Big Pink, those houses were near Woodstock.
Yeah, well, it was right. It was then, because that was all before jets.
Right.
Jet travel had not really been, because you're talking, jets were starting to come. I'm sorry. I'm thinking a little too far back. But yes, they're still very popular up in that neck of the woods for artists.
Gotcha.
And that could have been. I don't know exactly the whole history. I just don't know it of how exactly what was the purpose of the promoters and the organizers of that in creating this. I don't know. It very possibly that I wouldn't doubt that was very true.
Yeah, from the things that I had heard, which is just what you hear, but the industry and fans were very eager to see what Bob was doing, why he was sort of hiding, and to put the concert almost in his backyard.
To make it induce him.
Right, just to see if they could drag him back out of hiding.
Yeah.
But and that was just more so like a rumor, but I've heard it multiple sources.
Yeah.
So you never know.
It'd be interesting research, Friday. It would be to look back at the original playbills or advertising that was done for Woodstock. I've never done that. Maybe something like that, and see if Bob Dylan's name was an original. I don't know whether he was ever slotted or mentioned that he might be there or to promote. I don't know. That would be an interesting little piece of research of musical history, because it may not. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I wouldn't doubt it though. I wouldn't doubt. If it is true.
Gotcha. So what other music have you personally been working on? You have this new project going on. What else is happening?
Yes. Well, basically, the new product is largely a freshening of some older material, but a lot of it I wrote myself. And we do a lot of different stuff on there. When you go to see it, we've done well in the charting there. We've done very well. We consistently are up. We have a lot of top tens on the SoundClick charts, blues charts. We've had a number one. So it's well listened to and well accepted. It's broad-based in its theme, though. We have some gospel stuff in there.
Okay.
We have a bit of a little country. One of the really wonderful songs we did was, and it was very well charted, was a song called Country Thang.
Okay.
And that was Dee Dee Van Fritz, myself, and Beck Ann, who is a female singer and a good friend of ours, and she does the primary vocal on that, and she and her partner named Douglas Huss, Huss, wrote that song, and it was really good. It's an interesting song. So to answer kind of concisely, there's a little bit of something for everybody here. We changed. We do a lot of things differently, but songs that most of the gospel is more blues oriented, and we add more blues flavor to it. Not I'd say we maybe got 50% gospel, 50% blues. We also have some songs I wrote, and Dee Dee also wrote some songs too. He has a song called Face Mask Blues on there.
Okay.
That's coming. It's I wrote a song about it too. You Got to Take a Chance, and that's on there. It's an upbeat song about where its music going during. I don't mention code directly, but you get the gist if you listen to it.
Right.
That's kind of a blues song with an upbeat message. It's not gloomy. There's a lot of different things on there, so it's a wide spectrum. But I think the good part about it is we're introducing younger people a little bit to some of the older stuff, but with a more upbeat, modern sound to it.
Okay.
I did an adaptation on number one from a Ry Cooder song, Feeling Bad Blues.
Okay.
But that's just an instrumental. And so Dee and I got together and we did a readaction and added lyrics to it. That became number one on SoundClick.
Mm.
That's an interesting song. And there's a bunch of others. So I guess we're just trying to appeal to posterity and kind of be a little bit of a catalyst to kind of bring some of the older true styles, freshen them up, modernize them to a younger audience for them to listen to and to carry on. You know, that's the whole idea of it. That's one of the things that drive us, you know, to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we're going to take a little stab at these, you know, fan clubs idea. That's important for musicians. So between that and old age, it keeps me pretty busy, you know.
No, it's good. I mean, this is the time to keep as busy as you can.
Yes.
And you know, because there's really not much else to do.
No. Thank God I was just saying that to somebody else out. Thank God that we have music because it's great. You can sit home and do it, and you don't have to go anywhere. You can record it, you can listen to it, you can play it back. It is a tremendous sort of a godsend during this tough time, you know, because what else do you do? You know, it's hard. So I think it's a blessing, you know, to be able to do that from home now. You know, and it takes full of time.
In the downtime that I've had this year so far, I've found music that I wouldn't have found otherwise without having the downtime to and interest to do a little digging, you know, and see what you can find.
Well, it's a good catalyst sometimes to have time in your hands. Because otherwise you wouldn't do it. And I've been listening to a lot of music that I would never heard before, and we were transforming it. So, you know, a couple of guys that I still listen to is I love guys that really weren't that technically proficient, but had tremendous charisma.
Okay.
Louis Armstrong. He can sing that well. When you're really, as a purist, if you're sitting by a bunch of music critics, it's
right.
And the other guy I love is Jimmy Durant.
Okay.
Jimmy sings his songs with such passion. He does September song, and you know, it's not technically great, at all, but the emotion just comes right through it. And I think he's a guy that's probably forgotten a lot, but he's worth listening to, and I still listen to him. I you know, when I can.
One thing, like,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
With Jimmy Durant, there was just recently they put a song of his in the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, the song "Smile."
Yeah.
And I've noticed that, like, with my interest in old music, that kind of brought Jimmy up a little. Just he brought him back into the public eye in 2019 or whatever, a little bit, because his song was in a popular movie on the soundtrack.
Yes.
But other than that, I would agree that he's a performer that probably should be remembered a little bit more so.
Yes. It's and of course Louis Armstrong was was just that gravelly voice style, and of course just the emotion he could bring into music was tremendous. Of course I listen a lot still to my old team guys, you know, that were popular. I still like to hear Peter, Paul, and Mary's stuff. You know, every now and then they had some beautiful songs, and they sang it well, you know. And Muddy Waters has got some great stuff. Dylan, you know, he's been all over the map, and I've always been a big fan of his. You know, and even how can you knock Willie Nelson at his age? Still cranking him out. Willie, interesting guy who I would put into the realm of musicians who I love because they can convey emotion. Again, Willie he's developed. He was basically more of a guitarist, and he is a tremendous guitarist. You listen to some of his work on the Spirit album that he does. It's a little bit older, but he has some tremendous guitar solos in that. And and still does. But when he sings, some of his songs are so, to me, resonate deeply, just in the way they come through. But again, if you really are a purist on pure quality of voice, Willie Nelson, it's not there. I mean,
Right.
he find fault pretty easily with, and not find fault, but I mean, he doesn't make it in that genre like any of the other guys we're just talking about in the last couple.
Yeah.
But they more than make up with the transference of the emotion, to me.
Yeah.
And even that's from a recorded transference. So
Yeah. I had seen Willie Nelson live, I believe it was 2007. And I have yet to see someone live, I've been to a lot of concerts, who was, people always go in wanting them to sound like they did on the album,
Yeah.
And I've never heard someone who sounded just like the record than Willie. I mean, he was just spot on. And I tend to like, when they're different than the album. I like to hear a different version of things. But man, like Willie was he was so spot on with every note that band played. I was very, very impressed seeing Willie live at that time.
Yep. Absolutely. He's going to be, I think he'll be well remembered. Well, of course he's, in essence, he's in the superstar league, but still, I think he has a unique talent.
Mm-hmm.
What I mentioned, I'm a little more current, and it was a real blockbuster. I think it was last year, or was it 2 years ago? Ed Sheeran.
Okay.
Of course, he had that smash hit. God, the title just went out of my head. But the one that everybody, what the heck was that one? I can't even think of it.
It was recent.
Yeah, let me. It was a video on it. He shows him in the mountains. Am I saying it? Is it Ed Sheeran? Yeah. He's a new, younger guy.
Yeah.
That song took off. What was it? It was, oh man, I'm pulling a blank for some reason.
Okay, well, I pulled them up here. Let me throw some titles at you. Maybe you'll recognize it. So we got Shape of You, Perfect, Thinking Out Loud.
I think it's Perfect.
Okay.
That was the blockbuster.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, this one says 2017, so that's pretty recent.
Yes. Now, what did he do? It's an interesting thing. He took an old rock and roll song. If you listen to it, it's an old rock and roll chord progression, nothing fancy.
Right.
And he added a certain, what I would guess to be truly charismatic style. He sings very, very nicely. Mm-hmm. But he's not, again, a super singer, immense, but he's extremely talented singer, a vocalist is excellent. But the whole thing, to me, sounded good. And it was, to me, everybody said, oh, this is great new stuff. Well, the whole song is really, as an old-time rock, well, not rock and roll, but more of a, the early 60s type chord progression.
Yeah.
So it was amazing, and he has a nice video on that. So I've been a big fan of his. I lost a couple of other things. I don't know if I liked them as much as that on that particular song, but and the other one is not well known, Danielle Nicole.
Okay.
And she's got some great video. You can find her on YouTube. She does a couple of real good ones. She has her own video. And then she does, and she's been an up-and-comer, but I think nowadays it's hard to be an up-and-comer. But she's really, I think, going to be worth something as you go along. I listen to her. When she comes out with something new, I do. And it's just another one that just a couple of more recent, younger artists that have attracted me. Unfortunately, I don't have a radio anymore. When you used to hear all this stuff when you're driving your car.
Yeah.
radio. I'm all, and I think that's, you lose a little something because you'll hear a song that you didn't hear before, or you're just, versus, just looking through, seeing what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I think that helps you grow, because it's kind of an unforced, or it just comes into you, and you'll suddenly see, gee, that sounds really nice, you know, or whatever. And I think that's that radio time was good to listen to music, and that was a lot of the time I used to listen to music in the car, in a radio. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
And it's not so much even at home,
Right.
So that's hopefully a medium that will still be around. But there's a lot of internet guys. There's so many that are doing broadcasting on the internet. That's a tough slog, but they're doing a lot of work, at least to get the more unknowns heard more. But it's a struggling business. You gotta just love it and be obvious if you want to run an internet radio station, unless you have big money. I mean, there's a few big ones out there that have done well, I guess. But it's a tough slug. But anybody can do it. That's the advantage.
Right.
I mean, it's not that hard. The technology to do it is easy now. You can use a platform and go to it. Yeah. But it's certainly something that's emerging, and it continues to grow. Hopefully, it will. But I don't see the ability to really, unless you want to do it as obvious. I don't know there's much economic incentive in there really at the moment.
No, definitely not at the moment. Yeah.
And you have to really promote your show.
Yeah. To
get people to listen. Presumably, the typical radio station, if you got enough viewers, you would get some advertisers. Yeah. And then you could at least make ends meet a little bit from advertising. But you got to get there, and it's not so simple. It's a lot of promotional time. Okay. So, but that is a new flavor. Everybody can be a broadcaster now. As Jimmy Durant would say, everybody wants to get into the act.
Yeah.
But I think it's great. I think the more people immerse themselves into this, in whatever role, it's great. It is good.
Yeah, I think as the mainstream industry gets a little bit more homogenized and a little bit more commercial, the fact that the technology is there gives the independent artists the opportunity to get out there in some way.
Yeah. Yes.
Because things seem to be a little bit more formulaic these days in terms of radio play.
Yes. Yes. Over the air, normal big time radio stations. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's changed much. They probably run as similar. I don't know how the larger broadcasts like around New York City. Yeah. They use. I would think they're still using the old fashioned model. Track listeners and get advertisers. So that's the model. But it's a new dimension. It's a new frontier, so to speak. Yeah. And it does give anybody a chance. That's one of the advantages of the internet. It's very possible that you can present yourself to the world like you never could before. Mm-hmm. Because in the old days, you'd have to get somebody to kind of back you in some way, producer, label, whatever the heck it is. And that was a rat race. And, only certain got selected, not always based on talent, sometimes just based on their perception of how many records they could sell. So there's a difference there. Do you go with good music, or do you go with what sells? Yeah. And that's always been the dichotomy in the music business. I think that artists don't particularly like that, especially artists who write and create music. They don't want to be told what to do. Right. And they will. If, in the old days, they were told, well, this is no good, write this one. You would have to do that. But Nowadays, you got the independence.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the cash from it, but you got the independence to present it to the world, and you just never know where something could go viral.
Yeah.
And usually it's not luck; you got to promote it a bit. But
Right.
it's amazing. It is an equalizer, and that's just like in, I guess, and the news business. You got people out there blogging now. Some of them don't know what they're talking about. Others are very good, and they have a different perspective.
Right.
And it's a lot of, it gives a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact, well, who do you listen to? Where do you go? It's good. I think that's a real advance. In the times they are a changing motif, we didn't have that. And you're right. You're absolutely right. It does create new opportunity.
Yeah, I found it similar, like across the board, not only in music but visual art or like independent filmmakers. I mean, the fact that YouTube, anyone in the world can log on to that or go to other websites and stumble upon your music,
Yes.
and it's almost like the lottery where you're better off in it. You got to be in it to go viral. You have to be there.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Whether or not it happens, your chances are 100% better if you take the shot rather than not.
Well, there was an old school of thought, and I happen to subscribe to it.
Mm-hmm.
I have known very few truly inspirational musicians who ever made it their first goals to make money out of the music business.
Right.
That wasn't the goal. Now, yes, it's certainly one of the motivators, but I always found that if someone says to me, well, I'm in the music business because I can make money at it, then I'm saying, well, okay, what are you doing to do that? What you're really doing is, in essence, not playing from your own heart and soul. You're playing for commercial advantage or some kind of commercial consideration.
Right.
I don't think you put the same passion in it if that's your whole goal.
Right.
You may act like you do, but I think it doesn't. It's kind of the same thing. Transfer. Not too many guys last, I've seen, whose goal was just to make money. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to be a professional musician, yes, you need an income stream. And we all hear about the big superstars who make, mega money, but about 99.9% are not in that range.
Right.
So I think truly it's very hard, difficult for a musician to last a long time if they really are just trying to make money. I don't see that's going to take them down roads because they're going to chasing the money rather than chasing what's inside them with the music. But that's just my theory. Others subscribe to it, others don't. Others will say, no, I can technically do this and I can technically do that. Again, there's a whole new genre of all this electronic music that's put together. Some of it's extremely impressive sounding. But I'm going to say, well, where do you go to a concert to hear this? What do you sit in the seat and you listen to speakers? I mean, who now, if somebody's there performing maybe, but it sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's one-dimensional, I find, anyway, just for me.
Okay.
Some people swear by it. And it is technically beautiful music, and it allows one person or to bring together many different flavors and styles, and all that is good. Mm-hmm. But I just don't see it because there's, you just don't have a performer in that case.
Yeah.
You have more of in a sense, more of a DJ is putting together themes and mixes to make it sound good, which is good. You need DJs too, but I don't know. It's just I'm just old school, I guess, on that. I don't see it as exactly the same way as I do with a live performance, or some kind of show. But anyway, that's an old man's.
No, and I've experienced both scenarios live, and there is something to be said for watching the musicians create that music right in front of you. You
Right.
see, like when I was about over 10 years ago now, like I followed Further, which was a reincarnation of the Grateful Dead. And one thing I noticed amongst those fans is their relationship with those musicians.
Yes.
Who wanted to stand near Bob Weir? Who wanted to stand near Phil Lesh?
Right.
And that sort of thing added an element, to it. Now, I've been to DJ shows where it still felt great, but that human element was missing, that relationship. And to bring it all the way back around again, the transference is not quite the same when there's one person as opposed to a whole band.
Yeah, that's what I feel too. And but that's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I applaud that if that's what you respond to. But again, I go back to what resonates with me is a whole feel. It involves the crowd. Now, one thing about the electronic music experience is, you can still have a big crowd and everybody can get into it.
Yeah.
So some of the transference is there. That is true. If it's an ability to dance, but if you're just sitting and listening, like an audience,
right,
I think you got a tough sell on that one.
Right.
You got to have some movement and you got to have something going on,
right,
and then it becomes good. Yeah, there's a bit of that in there, absolutely. So,
gotcha. We're just about at the end of our time, Roy. But first of all, I want to thank you so much for coming on, giving us some time. Refresh me about where folks can find what you're up to in your work.
Sure. Our main site now, it's easy enough. The URL is SoundClick, one word, SOUND, click, soundclick.com/The Sledgehammers. That's what we got to put in. SLE, Sledgehammer, just like SLEDGE, hammers, plural. And that'll take you right to our platform on the, for that, all those songs. And then I personally have also on SoundClick, soundclick.com /Roy Hannum, my name, ROYHANNUM1. The number 1 is at the end of it. So it's soundclick.com /Roy Hannum1. We'll give you other songs that I do just individually and personally. And that's a pretty good compilation of most of what we've been doing for a while now. So those two platforms would be the way I would say to access us directly.
Okay, great. Now I'll put them in the links so folks can check out what you're doing. Yeah. And I'm so glad to see you this time, and glad that you're glad that we're hanging in there.
Changing. I remember we used to do them on the phone.
Yeah.
This is a great. So the times are changing.
They are, and it's good.
It's so good to see you too, Al. I admire all your efforts and work. I mean, I just would encourage anybody to spend some time. Now that you can't go,
I know.
Go listen to some of Al's stuff on his Planet Shivers series. It's tremendous. You got some tremendous stuff there. Really.
Thank you, Roy. Now I'm working on it. It was because of the virus and everything, I hit some things and did some episodes that would have never happened. The specifically the highlight of that being speaking with Louis Armstrong's daughter over the summer was just floored me. I didn't even know he had a daughter. So
I hear you. Your stuff on there is tremendous. I haven't even been able to see them all, but I try to watch some of the ones I haven't seen, and there's never one it's not found yet that's not really worth listening to. And I would encourage anybody to certainly go there. I guess you're on Twitter and So YouTube, right? And,
Yeah, the podcast nowadays gets put out on YouTube with video, and it's also on Google Play, Spotify, the podcast app, iTunes, and SoundCloud. So I make it as easy as I can for folks to find it, so that nobody has an excuse,
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
We'll keep pointing everybody there too, because it's good for them to hear your work. And I mean what I say. I admire it greatly. Okay.
I appreciate it. It means a lot. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. It was really great having a conversation with Roy. We got some real big guests coming up. I'm going to fill you in between now and then. So keep tabs on what I'm doing on Instagram and on the Albert Shivers YouTube channel. On Instagram, it's at Albert Shivers, and on YouTube, it's just Albert Shivers. Thank you again so much for listening. You can find this podcast episode and more on all major podcast platforms and YouTube with the video. Thank you again so much for listening. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Be happy. Be healthy. Be good to yourself and be good to somebody else.